All right. Hello, everyone. I am Kathleen Moore. I'm a product owner for FOLIO, and the primary project I've been working on is the List app, which I'm super excited to share with everyone today. I know some of you have seen it in various forms. So I'll talk a little bit about what the List app is and what problem it's aiming to solve. And then we'll go into a live demo and we'll play around and can see some of the capabilities that the List app can currently do. So we'll talk a little bit about the problem. Again, we'll go into the live demo, and then we can talk a little bit about some of the use cases, functionality that we have built to date, our timeline as well, what we've done so far and what our immediate next plans are, and then we'll open it up for questions. So I think everybody here knows that FOLIO has a lot of really great data, but it is really hard to access and make it so that you can use that data in a easy way, to fit into your existing workflows. Yeah. And a lot of you need that data to be able to make informed decisions about your various flows. So whether it's collections, services, operations. And again, the data is there, it's just not easy to get to. And so that's where the List app comes in. So our aim with the List app is to provide actionable lists inside of FOLIO at the point of need. So we're going to enable users to create ad hoc list creation within the FOLIO UI. You don't have to go outside of FOLIO to use this. You're going to be able to create lists across records of various types and across apps. So again, you'll be able to see that in the demo here in a moment. The List app really aims to be user-friendly and to make it easy. We guide you through the process of building that query. So you don't need to mess with APIs or SQL. If that's something that you're not comfortable with, we try to make it really easy. We do have planned support to eventually enable list creation on all fields in FOLIO. But what you'll see that we've built to date is only a limited subset. So we do plan to expand that out, but that's what we have currently. All right, so I'm going to hop right over to the List app. Perfect. And can everybody actually see it, or do we need to zoom in? Okay, perfect. So the List app itself. So when you log into the List app, if you have created lists or if somebody else in your tenant has created lists, you'll see them here, as long as they are either shared lists or they're your private lists. And the lists are a combination of ad hoc custom lists that users have created, as well as canned or system-generated lists. And really the big indicator right now is, if I highlight this row, lists that have a source of system. These are the canned or pre-generated lists, and all of the others have been created by various users. We have some filters on the left so that you can sort of narrow down your list of lists that you have. If you do have more than 100 lists, you can scroll through them so you can see them on various pages. Again, we have the idea of shared or private lists. Right now, the functionality that we have built in is that a private list is private to the individual user. So me as Kathleen Moore logged in right now, if I create a list, it'll only be visible to me. If somebody else logs in to the same tenant, they won't be able to see that list unless I was to modify and make it shared. And depending on how long the demo goes, I can show what it looks like to have a private list. We also have record types here on the left. And right now we have items and loans. And even though they say items and loans, they actually contain more than just item fields or more than loan fields. And I think that'll start to make a little bit more sense as we go into some of these lists. So I'm going to go into one of our canned lists, the expired patron loan lists. And so when you first open a list in the top area, you've got some basic information about the list. You've got the metadata. So you've got the name, the description, whether it is shared or private, whether it's active or inactive, and the source of that. So in this case, it's a canned report or pre-generated, and so the source is the system. I can collapse this if I want to be able to focus on the contents of the list itself. So the next area contains information about the actual query that was used to create this list, as well as the record count. And then below that, you'll see all of the actual records that are a part of this list. One thing that you're able to do, try to move these zoom controls. You have the ability to come into this actions menu and see or hide additional columns. So if there's information that you want to see or that you don't want to see, you can hide that. So like in this case, if I don't want my user patron group, I can come in here and I can hide that so that I no longer see it. If I want to add some columns, so in this case, I'll come down to, let's see, I've got item barcode and status already, so that's perfect. And then let's come in and add our loan checkout date and our loan status. And actually this column, being able to show these columns here, so we can see, it pulls in data across user records, across loans. We've got some instance fields as well as some item fields here. So this list is across those various types. When I scroll over here, I can see here, now I've got all of those item barcodes, as well as the loan checkout dates. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to hide a couple more of these columns real quick. I'm going to hide the expiration and then the loan due date, just so that we can see some of these other fields a little bit easier. And the way that lists work right now is that the record set that you have associated with your list, it remains static. So when this list was run and created, it generated 2,839 records. If some of these records were to be updated, what we would see is that the metadata of those records would show the updated values within our list, but new records would not be added to our list or taken off of our list unless the user takes action. So what does that mean in practical terms? What I'm going to do is, because these are loans that are still active, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take one of these barcodes, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to come into check-in, and I'm going to check in this barcode. Okay, so I'm going to confirm that I'm checking it in. Okay, I'm going to close that. And so now when I come back to my lists, so again, this is the first record on my list, and I can see that my loan status is open and my item status is age to loss. If I just reload my browser to force this to update a little bit faster, what I'm going to see is that in that near real time, that status is going to change. So my loan status is now closed and my item status is now in transit for that book that I just checked in. So in theory, if I were to rerun this query, that record would no longer show up. Same thing if, in this case, if a user was made to be active, same thing, they would fall off of this list if I were to refresh the contents. And so I'm going to actually show you what that refresh looks like. So refresh or rerunning the query is going to get you an entirely new record set. So any records that now meet the parameters of this query will be added, and records that don't meet it will be dropped. So if I come in here and I say refresh list, it'll give me a little indicator at the top up here that it's compiling. And so it is rerunning that query. And when this is done rerunning, what we're going to see, and it might be a little bit hard to see on the screen, but if I look down here, the existing list, I've got 2,839 records. And if I look up here at the top telling me my refresh is complete, I can see I've got 2,838. So the one record has dropped off. When I click my view updated list, I'll see that Alton Abrams user will no longer be on this list. So we can see there that we rerun the list and you'll get a new record set. But at the same time, you'll be able to see any metadata that has changed. You'll be able to see that without refreshing your list. A couple more list actions I want to point out while we're on the screen is that we have the ability to refresh the list, which I just showed. You can edit a list, delete a list. You can also export a list to CSV. So I'll demo that real quick. So if I come in here and I export my list to CSV, it'll tell me that the list is being generated. It may take some time for larger lists. And then I'm going to get a second toast notification when that is done. And there we go. And I can see that it's completed. So if I come in here and open this, what it's going to do right now is it's exporting not only all of the records on that list, but all of the columns. And so we can see here, it's not just the visible columns that we're exporting, but we've got all of the columns that are available. So it's nice and handy that we're able to quickly export a list to CSV. One of the coolest features, in my opinion, about lists is actually the ability to create your own list, to create a new list. So I'm going to walk through what that process looks like. So if I come from the Lists app landing page and I click on New, it's going to bring me to this little menu where I can choose some basic information. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this a list name. On the left here, I can choose my record type. And again, item and loans is what we've added so far. And even though it's called items, it contains some additional fields from other record types, same with loans. I could give it a description if I wanted, and I have the ability to change the visibility and the status. I'm going to come in to build my query. And this is where you're led through a super friendly process, and it's going to be entirely context dependent. So depending on the record type that you've chosen, that is going to choose which fields are populated here. And you can see here, we've got quite a few item fields that we have as options, but we also have some instance fields that are pulled in. And we actually do have a holdings field that is in this version currently mislabeled, but we do have a holdings field as well. And so if I come into this and if I choose for my field, I'm going to choose my item effective library name. And now the operators are again going to be context specific here. So the operators that we currently support are equals to, not equal to, in or not in, which is basically a multi-select, as well as for some fields, we include starts with or contains. And again, for some fields, we have dates as well. So I'll show some of those. For this first example, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do is equal to, and now my values again, where it makes sense with the data to be pre-populated, you'll have options that you can just select. And some of the other fields, you'll see that we have just free text areas where you can type. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to choose one of my libraries, and I'll choose Proctor Library. And now I have the ability here with this little plus to add a parameter, and I'm going to choose for my second, I'm going to choose my item material type. And in this case, I'm going to do is equal to, book.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to click test query. And what that does is it executes the query real quick. That one actually came back a little bit faster than I expected it to. But when you are testing the query here, what it'll do is it'll tell you how many records will return with that full query. So you can get a sense of, I was expecting far more results, or I was expecting, way fewer. And it'll give you a preview of up to the first 100 records. Similar to how when you're viewing a list, you can come in and you can adjust the columns that are visible. So if it makes sense to have some of these columns or not have some of these columns, you can adjust it. But it's really nice because you can come in here and say, that's not quite what I wanted to do. I want to modify this search and I'm going to adjust it. So in this case, I'm going to change it so that my item effective library name is not equal to. I'm going to choose N so that I can select multiple. And in this case, I've got my Proctor library again, and then I'm going to add my social service administration. And so if I wanted to, I could keep adding additional values or remove them with the little X if I didn't want those. I'm going to, again, test that query and see what my results look like. So in this case, you can see I'm going to get a lot more records. It tells me when it's counting in progress. When it's done counting, it'll give you that final record count. And again, you've got the preview of the first 100 records. I should say up to 100. If they're less than 100, it'll show you all of them. If I wanted to modify this a little bit more and say, you know what, I'm specifically interested in material types that are not book rather than that are book, I can come in here and I change that. And now I can test the query to see the results. You can see now I've got it down to 12. So it's nice that you can really come in here and quickly sort of play and test around and experiment and adjust that query and get that instant feedback before you actually fully create a list. It looked like there were some questions in Zoom. I don't know, does it make sense to you? Okay. So I'm going to close out of this real quick, and I'm going to show you some additional queries using the loan record type. So I'm going to, again, click build query here. And the fields now that I'm going to see are going to be different. So you'll see here I've got a variety of user fields. I've got some loan fields, instance, item. And so, we've got a variety of fields that we have up here. In this case, I'm just going to do a quick search to find users that have open loans with lost items over a given time period. So I'm going to choose my item status. And in this case, I'm just going to do equals to. I could do in if I wanted to choose multiple values. But in this case, I'm just going to choose age to loss as my value. I'm just going to test that real quick to see what that looks like. And I can see here, so far I've got 400 records. All right, now we're up to 39,000. One thing that I should probably should have mentioned to start with is that the database that this is actually querying has somewhere around 8 million item records, and it's like, I think it's like just under 60,000 loans, just to give you a sense of the amount of data that this is live querying against. And so, we've got 46,000. And so if I wanted to narrow this down even more, I could add. And in this case, I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose my loan due date. And I'm going to choose, now that we've got a date, we've got some different operators. So you could choose a specific date, not on a specific date, greater than or less than, or greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So in this case, I'm going to choose greater than or equal to. And for my date, you can see we've got a nice date picker here. And I'm just going to make this January 1st of 2023. And so when I test this now, the results are going to be any loans that were due on or after January 3rd of 2023 that have an item status of age to lost associated with them. And then you can see here with this, you've got our users' full names, their barcodes, and we've got, lots of useful information on those records that we could then take action with. I'm going to show you another example, and this time I'll actually create a list so that you can see what that process looks like. This example is going to be of patrons who, based on their patron group, probably shouldn't have active loans, but that do. And so for my first field, I'm going to choose my user patron group. And I'm going to start with access only, do not load anything. And then I'm going to come in, add another parameter, and I'm going to choose my loan status equals, and I'm going to say open. And then I'll go ahead and test that query. And so we can see here, it's still counting. And so we end up with 1,572 records, again, with a preview of up to those first 100. I'm going to actually just come in and save this list. And so what it'll do is that it's going to actually create a list here, and it's going to use that Kathleen's test as the name that I created before. And it's going to generate a list. And so I can see here that it's complete with 1,572 records. If I click my view updated list, it's going to show me all of the results from that query that I just created. And so, I can scroll down, I can see all the various information. If I come into my actions and I go, this query isn't quite right, I want to play with that a little bit, I can come in here and I can go to edit list. And, I can change any of the basic list information, but I also have this option here to edit my query. And so if I click edit query, it's going to bring up that same user-friendly query builder with the existing query already pre-populated. So now I can come in and I can adjust this a little bit further. And so, in this case, maybe I'm going to add an additional field, and I'll say, and my user, let's do my user expiration date is, we'll do greater than or equal to, and we'll do January of 2022. And we'll just do January 1st, and then we'll test that to see what that looks like. And if we decide, this is, more records, in this case, it's all of them, maybe I'll make it just since the start of this calendar year, and I'll update that here to January 2023. If I can get my keyboard to type. There we go. So January of 2023. Now if I test that, we're going to see, it looks like all of these are 2024. That's why. So let's come in and we'll make it January 2024. And then we should see a different result set. Here we go. And this is the joy of playing and testing here, is that when you realize you have something, if we change our operator to less than or equal to, and it looks like all of these are March 25th of 2024. So like if we make this, let me come in here and we do March. Sure, March 3rd of 2023. What we'll see is that I would expect at least all of those top records to drop off of my list. And in fact, all of them. And again, this is just test data. And so we probably bulk added users that had an expiration date of that specific March date. And so in this case, I wouldn't want to run the query and save my list with 0 records. But if I wanted to, I could click run query and save. That would update my list. I would see that full, everything that you see here in the test would be part of my list, and my record set would be updated. If I don't want to change this and say, I don't want 0 records, I can just click cancel, and it won't update anything about my list unless I come in here and manually change it. And so in this case, I could cancel out of saving my list here. So I'm just going to click cancel. And then I'm going to walk through creating one more list. And this time I'm going to make a private list so you can see what that looks like. And then I'll log in as a different user to see what would be visible. So I'm just going to name this private list. And I'm going to choose loans as my type. I'm going to change my visibility to be private. I'm going to make my description as loans private list. If I come in here to build my query, I just want to highlight a couple more of the fields that we have. So in this case, I'm going to do my user first name. I'm going to choose starts with. And in this case, you're going to see that I have a free text field. And so I can type the value. So I'm just going to type KATH to test to see what we get back. And so looks like we've got 378 records that are loans with a user first name that starts with KATH. So if I wanted to add some additional query, I can come in here and I'm going to choose my instance title, and I'm going to choose contains. And since we're at WOLFcon, I'm just going to go ahead and choose wolf as the value here. And I'm going to test this. And depending on how large of the data set is that you're working with, some of these starts with or contains searches can be a lot slower than what I'm showing here, just depending on how large of data that you're searching on. You can see here that almost all of these are checked out to me, with the exception of one from Kathy Smith. And if I scroll over to my titles, you can see here that they all have wolf somewhere in the instance title. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this to be Kathleen. I'll test it, and that way I make sure that this list is just me. So it'll be items checked out to me that contain wolf in the title. And so I'll run that query and save my list. So it'll take it a second here to generate that list. And so now I can see I've got my private list. Oh, it looks like there is another Kathleen who has a wolf book, so it's not entirely me. So I'm going to close out of this. And if I were to choose on this first screen, my visibility of private, I'm going to see that one list that is mine is called private list. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log out quickly as myself. And then I'm going to log in as another user. And then what you'll be able to see is that that private list that I created just for myself will not be visible to this user. Let's see. Okay. Let's just give this a second to refresh. see, I do not see private list here. Let's just make sure. Nope, so I don't see it anywhere on the page. If I come down and choose private, you can see that as this user, it's not visible. But if I were to log back in as myself as Kathleen Moore, I would be able to go in, edit that list and make it shared. And then at that point, everybody else would be able to see it. So you have the ability to manage what is visible to others versus what is just visible to you. I haven't really shown an example of what active or inactive means. If you have a list that you know that you want to do on a recurring basis, but you know that you've used your record set and you don't need it again for like another several months or till the next year, you can make a list inactive. And what that'll do is it'll save the list with the query, but it'll remove the record set and it'll remove it from the default view on your lists. So it'll still be there so that when you want to come into it and make it active, at that point, you can execute the query and then you'll be able to have a fresh result list, but it won't clutter your view. So that's just sort of the high level of what active or inactive list is. I'm going to pause. Are there any questions from Zoom that make sense now, do you think, or? Okay, so yep, so we've got a lot of great questions about how soon will various other record types be available for searching. We are hoping to be able to squeeze a couple more into this initial release. And if we were, it would likely be users. But we're rapidly working on the list app and trying to add as much data to it as we can, as quick as we can, while also building the functionality in the UI. Yeah, so the question was, are we exploring hyperlinking the results? And yes, we do have a feature in the backlog for that. So we see how that would have a lot of use to be able to quickly go to the record. It's not yet planned for a release, so I don't know how soon it will be added, but that's definitely something that we see value in adding. You're welcome. I'm going to hop back over to the PowerPoint to just talk a little bit more about the list app, and then can answer more questions, and if it makes sense, go back into the app itself. So just to give a sense of the timeline, so we started work on this app in January of 2023. And so we have a dedicated Scrum team working on this. And from January to March, we were working on sort of a thin thread end-to-end solution that was the rudimentary UI, where we had 2 canned or pre-generated reports for expired patron loans and missing items, and that you could come in and you could refresh the results list. After that, we quickly moved to really building out more of the core functionality in the app, being able to create a new list, tying into that query builder tool that you saw, so that you can use those nice context-aware drop-downs to choose your values, being able to delete a list, being able to export your list as a CSV, the ability to create a private list, and adding additional data. So we are moving into the time where we're starting to test what this looks like, actually getting some people from the FOLIO community into the app to be able to get some feedback. We know there's some areas currently where we've got some labels that aren't quite right, and some of our early feedback has shown a couple of areas in the UI that we probably want to make some minor adjustments to make it more clear what's happening for the user. But our goal right now is to submit the list app so that it'll be available in the Poppy release, which will be in the November timeframe. Again, that'll be dependent on Tech Council and Product Council approval, but that's our goal for making it available. And so we are pretty much all of our development focuses right now have turned to making sure that we have everything in place to be able to submit the app in the next week or two for that review process. So if we talk just a little bit about the use cases, so being able to make a custom list when you can't currently do that with some of those built-in reports in Folio. So it'll be really nice to be able to come in and through the list app, be able to pull in that record and content from the various places, across your records, across your apps. We eventually see this being able to tie into additional workflows. Currently you can export those records. From that export, you could do additional sorting, you could print it. We see this tying in very closely to bulk edit. So we don't yet have that integration, but we see that coming sometime soon. And this initial version will have a set of pre-generated or canned lists that you can come in and refresh the record set on. So again, this is the sort of a list of the base functionality that'll be in the initial version based on the Poppy release. The last bullet there is that, we do plan to support additional fields, eventually all fields in Folio records, including MARC. That's not going to be in Poppy. So it's something that we'll be building out over time is support for all of those additional fields and record types. This is just mostly if people want to reference back, some of that like base functionality that's going to be available. A lot of this is just what I showed. So, this is being able to create that custom list and it notes those initial sort of views of our data. The predefined or canned lists. So currently we have two, one being the expired patron loans, which I showed, and then we've also got a missing items list. Being able to refresh your list results, so get that fresh record set. Again, you won't have to take an action to be able to see the most up-to-date metadata, but you'll be able to refresh or rerun your record set. Being able to export your list records to a CSV. And I'll open it up now to questions. And it makes sense to pass a mic so I don't have to try to.
Will you have list duplication?
So the question is, will we have list duplication available? Sorry, it's a terrible noise. Not in this. Sorry, I'm trying to make that terrible noise stop. Not in our initial release. It is one of our next planned features. One of the questions that we've been thinking about as we've been sort of exploring and refining that is with duplication, would users want to duplicate the exact record set, or do you want to duplicate the query? In your case, the query? Okay. And I'd be curious from others, is it the same thing? Is it the specific set of records that you're wanting to duplicate, or is it the query behind it? Query again? Okay. Perfect. Yep. Okay, perfect. Vivian?
So first of all, I want to heavily lobby for instance and SRS record types. But having said that, I almost hesitate to bring this up, but if you are going to incorporate, when you're going to incorporate instance and SRS records for those sites running enhanced consortial support, we then get into the question of the ability to create lists based on local bibs, shared bibs, both, neither, etc. And this isn't so much a question requiring an answer as I hope you guys are thinking about this comment.
Yes, we've definitely started thinking about it, and we'll be reaching out not only with Mobius, but Library of Congress as well, as we understand what and how we need to support that.
Terence from the National Library. My question is, by the way, I love the functionality. I think it's pretty exciting. And maybe I've jumped the gun for the next session. So just tell me if my question should be delayed. But looking at your user interface, so the modal that pops up for the search, that to me kind of it's got a vibe of a universal search interface, because if you look at the query string at the top, and if you look at, for example, in instance search, it's pretty rubbish how the little text box for your CQL is so small. Do you think that your paradigm that you're creating with regards to the top part of the UI could be rolled out or used as a universal search interface for the rest of the application?
So that's a great question. So I don't know as far as universal search, but the UI component is actually a shared UI component. So it'll be available for use elsewhere within Folio. So it's not specific to the list app.
Hi, Kathleen. I'm going to say it again because I'm the product owner for tags, which has been very dormant in terms of development for several years now. And for the folks that have been around for a while, some of you might remember that the phase 2 for tags was to be able to do some management of them. And one of the management pieces is being able to search across record types in Folio to see all the records that are using a particular tag, regardless of what type of record is, and get those back in a search result. And then be able to perhaps update that tag. You realize that you've got one tag with an S on the end and one tag without, one tag with an underscore and one tag with a hyphen. So being able to do some quality control and some kind of bulk edit to those. So to me, this is incredibly exciting as the start down a path to be able to look at that in the future.
First of all, I must say that that is awesome piece of software. And from the perspective of a vendor who I am, I must say that my clients, my libraries would be delighted to use that. Just one question about the future. Have you any plans to apply any sorting capabilities of lists content?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've decided for the short term to do most of to not support it directly in the list app, since you're able to export and do that in Excel or other software so that we can focus on other development. But we potentially see the need for being able to support in-app in the future.
Uh-oh.
Huge thanks for the work that's gone into this. This is going to be some crucial functionality for our library. A question and a suggestion. Suggestion first. If there could be sort of a roughly sketched out roadmap for when different record types might be available. I know at my institution, we would we've got some big projects kind of hanging out that we're dreading doing, right? And it's like, should we attempt this with what exists now in data import and bulk edit? Or if we know that certain functionality is coming in lists, maybe we'll wait. And then what is the best, aside from this forum, which I super appreciate, what is the other avenue for feedback for the folks working on lists?
Both are excellent questions. I think we'll definitely need to get a roadmap with the different record types out and available, as well as feedback probably for the time being. Is best to reach out to either myself or Matt, who is sitting up here, who will be talking in the next session, either on Slack or email. And we're still trying to figure out what is the best venue to have sort of that more less like one-on-one direct communication, the more broad communication channels.
I saw that Buddy mentioned this on chat, and I would actually echo, I think a SIG would be very popular.
Chat questions or? There is not currently one.
Hi, yes, I'm curious about how permission sets work with both like the shared lists and I guess the ability to sort of search because you're searching across multiple apps. So if you don't have sort of universal permissions, yeah.
Yep, that is a great question. So the initial version that we have, if you have access to the list app via permission sets, then you'll have access to query all of the data that the list app can have. Within the list app, we have different permissions to be able to view a list versus being able to export it or modify it. We know that we're going to need to do more granular permissions than that, but they're just not going to be available in this initial release. It's probably going to be one of our top next features to work on. Yeah, thank you. So a little plug for Matt's session next, where he'll be talking a little bit more about that. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.